Hello and welcome to Wardens of the Cross. This is the Defender. Public schooling has been a major part of life for children for about the last century, but it has not always been this way. Before the government decided that it had the right to raise the children in the place of the mother and father, it was the parents who raised the children from childhood and generally taught them good morals, good virtues, and, as is proved by much of the modern world, taught them more than the government could ever teach children about the real world. While homeschooling has been rather unpopular for the last century or so, it has been making something of a comeback. In this episode, we will briefly gloss over why homeschooling is a much better option for children for both moral reasons and in reference to the acquisition of intelligence. We will also examine how it is not only the parents' right, but also their duty and obligation to raise the children in the correct way. Public school has never been the best option in terms of education, as nothing can rival the work ethic and skill of a devout and dutiful parent. It is, however, continuing to take a turn for the worst, almost by the day. Bullies rule supreme in public school, and, rather than dealt with, these kids are allowed to run around raising hell and tormenting their classmates. Rather than actual educations, we see schools pushing more and more for mandatory sex ed courses, gender study courses, or planning the next costume party in drag. This has caused not only a lack of education, as children are not learning information pivotal to survival in the world, but also a major lack in morality. These children are forced into buildings under the guise of public education and taught en masse the ways of immorality, self-appeasement, and how carnal desires are perfectly acceptable at any age with anyone and no matter what the circumstances are. This all while learning nothing of any worth in the realms of classical studies and actual life skills. The goings-on at public schools nowadays are not by any means concealed, and anyone can read in almost any news source how this or that school is pushing for mandatory sex ed or something related to that moral issue. As public schooling continues to become more immoral and the teachers appear to be more like wolves in sheep's clothing, homeschool is on the rise, as it should be. Homeschooling is, and always was, the main way in which children gained an education. Through home education, the children learned the traits, the morals, and the education which their parents provided them. This is not, of course, a completely infallible system, since some parents are psychologically or physically lacking and cannot efficiently educate their own offspring, but it still guarantees that the children will be well cared for and protected. Through homeschooling, one can be sure that the children are safe and well educated in their morals. Now one may ask, what can parents who do not know how to educate their children or think themselves lacking do to provide their children an education from home? The wonderful thing about modern technology is that there is no limitation to what parents can use to educate their children. There are hundreds of thousands of online sites which teach different materials and subjects. Parents can use these as part of their curriculum, as the main curriculum, or to educate themselves as to be able to raise their children. Homeschooling has many more advantages than disadvantages in comparison to public school. Home education provides safety for the children, education for the children, being able to monitor who children hang out with, the ability to teach necessary traits to children such as respect and discipline. You can teach them morals, emphasis on the family relations, and much more. Another thing about home education and good, solid families is that God created humanity with the intention of parents raising the offspring. To show how we can know this, we can simply use logic as well as one or two Bible references. If there are any arguments that God did not give children specifically to the parents, or that parents are not the supreme teachers and mentors of their children, then one has not read enough Bible or used enough common sense in their lifetime. We are told, especially in Psalm 127:3, that children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. There are so many places throughout the Bible that refers to the parents, not the state, but the parents raising the children, that they cannot all be cited in this episode. The main One main quote, which we will quickly analyze in this episode, however, is the following citation from Deuteronomy 6:5-7. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. End of quote. Another quote which refers to the parental education of their offspring is Proverbs 22:6, where it tells us that if one educates a child on the right path when they are young, they will not stray from it. While these quotes are not referring directly to the studies of classical literature, mathematics, and the such, it is still referring to the education of the young in reference to morality and knowledge of God and His teachings, which is the major lacking in public school today. The sacrifice of morality for knowledge of worldly matters is never a fair trade-off, due to the fact that the former aids one in obtaining heaven, while the other is of temporary use here on earth. Not like public school gives a complete education of worldly matters at any rate. Rather, public schools have a habit of failing to educate the young and rather teaching immorality where godly virtues should flourish. Homeschooling is important for many reasons, with the utmost being this. God entrusted children to the parents, that they might be raised well and be raised to love the Lord. Public school is generally evil due to the fact that it does not accomplish this goal, but rather corrupts that which God made as good and taints it. What gardener would plant a rare orchid and then leave it to wither with a lack of water? No gardener in his right mind would, and neither should any parent be willing to bear children and then proceed to throw them to the wolves of the public school system. It is the parents' God-given right and responsibility to give their children a wholesome education and wholesome morals, and since the public school system is not accomplishing this, other means must be found. The best means? Homeschool and home education, the way God created humanity to function.